in the blazing heart of the Arizona frontier, where the sun cracked the earth and men's shadows stretched long and mean across the dust. The town of Red Mesa lived under a silence so tight it felt ready to snap. Folks whispered about a coming storm, not of wind or rain, but of two men whose names were spoken with the kind of fear that made even seasoned cowboys spit and cross themselves. One was Caspian Holt, a former U.S. Marshal turned wandering ghost, a man carved out of justice and scars, who had spent years hunting down the ruthless outlaw gang known as the Black Spurs until only one remained, Vance, the Scorpion. Cade, a gunslinger so fast the air cracked like lightning when he drew. The story of their rivalry had spread across territories like wildfire. Two predators circling each other, each kill bringing them closer to an inevitable collision. And now, after years of bloodshed and broken oaths, fate had chosen Red Mesa as the place where everything would end. Caspian rode into town at sunrise, dust rising behind him like the spirits of all the men he'd buried in the desert, his steely eyes locked on the horizon, as if Vance might crawl out of it any second. He tied his horse to the post outside the saloon, pushed through its swinging doors, and every conversation inside died instantly. The barkeep swallowed hard. "Marshal Holt, we heard you were coming, but we hoped it wasn't true. Vance was here. He left a message for you." Caspian leaned on the counter, his voice low and carved from stone. "What'd he say?" The barkeep slid a bullet across the bar. Etched into the metal was a time, pseudo Dublin, and a place, TCR. It was a challenge, it was a promise, and it was a death sentence. But before Caspian could reply, the double doors burst open and a woman rushed in, breathless and trembling. She wore a long travel coat, dusty boots, and eyes filled with fire. "Caspian Holt," she shouted. "Don't go to Cruel Ridge! It's a trap! Vance isn't alone. He's got a whole crew waiting to put you in the ground." Caspian turned slowly, studying her. He recognized her immediately. Evelyn Cade, Vance's estranged sister, once known as the best sharpshooter in the territory before she vanished years back. "Why warn me?" Caspian asked. "You should want me dead as much as he does." Evelyn stepped closer, her voice soft but shaking. "No, because Vance ain't my brother anymore. Not after what he became. Not after what he did to our family." The saloon went silent, all eyes glued to her trembling form. "Caspian," she whispered, "I'm begging you, don't walk into his ambush." But Caspian Holt had been living on borrowed time for years. "Evelyn," he said, "I ain't afraid of dying. I'm afraid of letting the wrong man keep breathing." As he stepped toward the doors, Evelyn grabbed his arm. "Then let me help you," she pleaded. He shook his head. "This is between me and him." Outside, the wind began to howl like a wounded animal, kicking up spirals of dust as Caspian walked down the street. Every door shuttered, every window locked. The town knew that by sundown, one of the most feared men in the West would be dead, and the other would be something even worse, a legend. Caspian saddled up to ride toward Cruel Ridge, and knowing full well the road ahead was paved with betrayal, bullets, and ghosts. But as he rode out of Red Mesa, he didn't notice Evelyn slipping out behind him, following at a distance. She couldn't let the two deadliest men in the West decide the fate of Red Mesa, even if it meant facing her own brother again. What neither of them knew was that Vance Cade had already stationed rifles across the ridge, and his men were itching to spill Marshal Holt's blood. As the sun dipped low and the desert skies turned gold, every creature went silent, sensing the violence creeping toward the earth. The most dangerous duel in the West hadn't even begun yet, but its shadow was already suffocating the land. And when Caspian reached Cruel Ridge and stared down at the empty clearing where he was meant to stand, he felt it, the weight of every choice he'd ever made. In the distance, a single figure stepped out from behind a rock, slow, deliberate, deadly. Vance, the Scorpion, Cade. The two men locked eyes, and the world seemed to stop breathing. The West wasn't ready for what was coming, and neither was destiny. The sun hovered at the very edge of the world as if the sky itself wanted to witness the final reckoning, casting long shadows across Cruel Ridge where Caspian and Vance stood, their silhouettes carved against fire, colored clouds like two ancient warriors preparing to write the last chapter of a forgotten legend. Vance took a step forward, the faint jingle of his spurs echoing through the canyon as his cruel smile spread beneath his black hat. "You finally crawled to me, Holt," he hissed, voice dripping with venom. "All these years, hunting my men, but today you die, and your story ends with you face down in the dirt like every other fool who challenged me." Caspian didn't blink, didn't flinch. "I'm not here for a story, I'm here for justice." But before Vance could reply, a bullet sliced the air. Fast, sharp, unexpected. Caspian dove behind a boulder as shots rained down from hidden positions across the ridge. Vance laughed. "You didn't think I'd fight fair, did you?" His men opened fire, trying to end the duel before it even began. Caspian returned shots with precision, dropping 2 hidden gunmen, but he was hopelessly outnumbered. Until the impossible happened. A single, deadly shot cracked from behind Caspian, hitting one of Vance's riflemen directly between the eyes. Vance whipped around in disbelief. Evelyn stepped onto the ridge, rifle in hand, her stance unshaking, her voice cutting through the chaos. "This ends today, Vance. One way or another." Rage twisted Vance's face. "You traitor!" he roared. "I should have killed you when I had the chance!" A gun battle erupted across the ridge, dust exploding, rocks shattering, bullets screaming across the canyon. Evelyn's deadly aim balanced Caspian's relentless advance as they pushed toward Vance's position. But Vance was a serpent, slipping through shadows, firing with terrifying speed. Caspian was closing in on him when a bullet hit his shoulder, spinning him around in agony. Vance stepped out of cover, raising his gun, ready to finish him. "Say hello to your ghosts," Vance sneered. But before he could fire, Evelyn charged forward, shouting his name. Her voice shattered his focus. For a split second he hesitated, and in that heartbeat Caspian rolled, drew, and fired. The bullet struck Vance's gun, knocking it from his hand. Sparks flew as the weapon hit the rocks. Suddenly everything went still. Vance stared at Caspian as if seeing him for the first time, not as prey but as the only man who had ever truly challenged him. He slowly raised his empty hands. "Pick up your gun, Vance," Caspian said coldly. "We'll finish this the right way." Evelyn screamed.
"Caspian, don't!"
"He'll kill you." Vance smiled darkly, strolling toward his fallen weapon. "You're a fool, Holt. I was born for this duel." Caspian stood tall, ignoring the blood dripping from his shoulder. "And I've spent my life ending men like you." The world shrank to a single point as Vance picked up his gun. Silence fell, thick, suffocating, unnatural. Even the wind stopped moving. 2 men facing destiny, death, and themselves. Vance whispered, "Draw." The 2 hands moved, fast, too fast for the human eye, a blur of steel and instinct. 2 shots exploded at once, merging into one deafening roar. Dust filled the air. Evelyn screamed, and when the haze cleared Vance the Scorpion, Cade staggered backward, clutching his chest, a crimson bloom spreading across it like a dying flower. His gun slipped from his fingers. He collapsed to the ground, eyes wide in disbelief, staring at the sky as if searching for something that wasn't there. Caspian stood swaying, smoke curling from his barrel, breath shallow but victorious. Vance coughed out a final bitter laugh. The West wasn't big enough for both of us. His eyes dimmed, and his reign of terror ended. Evelyn rushed to Caspian as he dropped to his knees, exhaustion washing over him. "You're alive," she whispered, relief breaking her voice. Caspian looked out over the ridge, where the sun finally dipped below the horizon, bathing the land in a peaceful darkness. "It's over," he murmured. "For him and for me." They buried Vance at the base of Cruel Ridge under a lone mesquite tree, leaving behind the man who once cast a shadow over the West. As Caspian mounted his horse, preparing to ride out into the unknown, Evelyn placed a hand on his arm. "Where will you go now?" He looked toward the horizon. "Somewhere quiet. Somewhere that doesn't remember my name." But as he rode away, the townsfolk of Red Mesa stepped out of hiding, whispering with awe about the duel that would be told for generations. The most dangerous duel the West would ever know. Legends don't choose to be born. They are carved in gunpowder and blood. And Caspian Holt became one that night.